announcing that I'm moderating this session, and we'll be talking to these two young people because I've talked about my book often enough.
We'll ask you questions also about you.
Okay, let's just make it equitable, and anybody in the audience who's written a novel, you also pitch in, and we'll all talk. Yeah? Because then I think the lovely thing about the Goa Arts and Literary Festival is the intimate proximity between writer and audience. There is an author's lounge, but most authors just go in to get free coffee because we are cheap.
Yes. Also
then,
broke.
Yeah, and then we come out and the fun thing is meeting people and talking actually. Because otherwise these podiums and daces become an excuse to be relentlessly self-promotional. And I think often that peeks through, right? I mean, I do a very good job of pretending, but inside somewhere, you begin to feel, acha, okay, I'll buy your book if you must, you insist so much. Okay, so let's just chat happily about this notion of finding a voice. I think central to this whole discussion has to be Samhita Arni, who found her voice at age 8. Man, seriously, what kind of thorax is that? What kind of larynx and what kind of vocal cords finds their voice at age 8? Even this mic is like startled. So you talk about that, na? Start with that. I know it's like you must be so bored.
It's like having PTSD and going back into your childhood and being like, oh God, what was I? I was an obnoxious 8-year-old. I had no friends. This is, I think, why I started writing. I had shifted to many places in many different schools, and each new school I went to, I got bullied horribly, and no one wanted to be my friend, and no one would sit with me at lunch. And what do you do at that point but start talking to yourself? And even better, you start putting it down on paper. So that's how I think all of us writers develop a voice, no? Because we're all fundamentally lonely, sad people inside. Aren't we?
Are you a fundamentally sad, lonely person inside? Doesn't look like it now.
No. I think I'm a happy person, but that would make me a terrible writer. So no, I mean, I am lonely. I am sad. Which makes me an extraordinary writer. Yeah. I honestly do not know why I'm on this panel, because I've been kind of voiceless for about 6 years now. I haven't written anything in the past 6 years.
He just goes from festival to festival.
Yeah, prostituting myself out. It's delightful. Talking about books I wrote a long time ago.
I know how you feel.
You just published a book.
He just asked me to talk about myself at 8.
Okay, you win. Yeah, exactly.
Help, Vivek, you put me in with two stand-up comedians.
No, to me, talking about books I wrote 7 years ago is sort of the equivalent of being a 12th grader who said, when I was in class 2, I got 100 on 100 in my math test. That's sort of how it feels. But yeah, I'm still finding my voice. I am, and it may take another 10 or 15 years before I come up with another book, and that's okay. It's fine. Sometimes, it takes time to find your voice. At other times, you get it when you're 8 and never lose it.
And, it took me 20 years to write M and the Big Home, so I know your pain, brother. And, if you're going to wait another 20 years and you're going to do your M and the Big Home, wait. Yeah? I
advise to everybody who is aspiring novelist in the audience, it's not the number of books you do. If it takes 20 years to produce M and the Big Home, it's damn well worth it.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, okay, and fundamentally this is also the secret. You get up, it seems to be as if someone else will tell you when you found your voice. It is like another person, a critic, or there's a general consensus. He's found his voice, she's found her voice. But when you're actively in the process of writing the new novel or confronting the blank page, there is no guarantee that that voice that worked in that novel is going to work in this novel. There's just no guarantee. You just have to start finding it again. And that process is both magical and humbling. Humbling because you're thinking, shit, by now this should be easy. I've done this like 25 years. Can't I just sit down and do this? And it's magical because if you could just sit down and do it, it would become artisanal. And writing is artisanal, but it is artisanal and it is alchemical at the same time. So yes, you do have to put the word down and the next word and the third word. And for me, my process is I write by hand. So it becomes even more artisanal because I can type very fast. I can type about 100 words a minute, which means therefore and I'm not short of words, as you probably know from having interacted with me. So I would probably write a novel every second day if I wrote on my computer, because I could just like hammer it out. So writing by hand kind of forces me into a sadhana state where the muscle has to obey what the mind is doing, and then the muscle can get in the way and say, easy boy, is this really what you want to say? Is this really what you want to do? So for me, this idea of finding a voice, because we were put on this panel, suggests we might have secrets about having found our voices. I want to say the secret is there is no secret. That you have to reinvent the voice each time you set out to do something. And again, this is it, right? After I finished M in the Big Room, there was following me a small cloud, a small little black cloud called the What Now cloud. You know, like, how are you going to top that, Jerry? And so I wrote a murder mystery. And every 8 out of 10 people would come up to me and say, it's not M in the Big Room. And I'd say, it's called Murder in Mahim, Klutz. Why would it be M in the Big Room? If I wanted to write M in the Big, and the whomey or whom, or after M what, or, something like that, I would have called it that. I didn't want to write M in the Big Room again. I want to write a murder mystery. Am I allowed? Do I have your permission? Seriously? I mean, I got to 50 and you get to tell me what my next book is about? No. Doesn't work that way. And yes, I would absolutely, fabulously love to just produce magnificent, prize-winning books every single time, but I'll do what I want to do, which is I want to have fun with the word. I want to enjoy my writing. I want to get up in the morning and think, I really have to figure out today how Peter knows what Millie thought in 1978. I want to do that stuff today. And you want me to write about another mental woman and her problems? Sorry, not happening this time. Maybe next time, maybe never again. But for me, if I'm not free to write what I want to, and I'm going to be tied down by myself, by my own work, then what kind of freedom is that? What have I pushed for all these years? I gave up a paying job. I mean, the last job was with Naresh Fernandez, who, I said I'll work for 1 year. At the end of the 1 year, Naresh said, I think the year is coming up now. Which I thought was he was saying time to go. And he was. It was very sweet because I said, yeah, you're saying time to go. He said, no. I'm just saying, we might get lucky and you might give us another year. And he was crossing his fingers and thinking, please God, don't let him say that he wants another year. And I quit because I wanted to get up in the morning, roll out of bed and decide what the shape of that day would be for me. Okay? So then to say, I'm going to be trapped by my history, or trapped by what is imagined to be my voice, is to give up what I gave up a steady, and I'm a middle class person with a deep love of a steady income called a salary.
Are you on this? No, but also what you're saying speaks to me, because I think we also as novel, and I feel this, there's a 15-year difference between us, but the idea of success can also be a huge trap, and it can really prevent you from taking kind of imaginative and creative risks. And I feel that particularly because my first 2 books are far more successful than anything I've written ever since. But I have to keep pushing myself to write from a different place. Otherwise, it just gets boring, and what is the point of it then?
I hear both of you guys. I had 2 books out within a year of each other. And there was that expectation that my 3rd book would be out a year after the 2nd book. Well, I thought so too, and it's been 7 years since the 2nd book came out, and the 3rd book is nowhere on the horizon because the ideas basket has been a little empty. But there was a time I struggled with expectations. There was a time I struggled with the guilt of not doing anything. I would wake up in the morning, get on Facebook, and there would be some innocuous question by some lovely reader about when my next book would be out. So I quickly got the hell out of Facebook because, you know, there was too much pressure there. But, you know, for me, I have made many sacrifices to pursue a writing career. And, you know, one among them being that I won't be living in a Fifth Avenue apartment anytime soon.
Nobody in this room will.
Come on, between you and Jerry, I don't know. You guys might be able to pitch in the money for a studio apartment on Fifth Avenue. Yeah. Hey, what, the $150,000 prize? What, come on, that would get you something there.
They took 33 1/3% off the top. Okay, the American government took it away. Then the Indian government wanted a little chunk of change, but luckily we have a double taxation agreement. And I have to say this, you know, people say you're rich now, and I feel if you earn $100,000 every month, you're rich. If you get one prize in your life, okay, that has to be amortized over the whole of your existence. You know, like you've got about $10 a month. And that's good, that's nice. I mean, you wouldn't have that $10 a month otherwise, but I'm not rich. And so, like this idea of, see, you know, my thing about even with the Fifth Avenue, even if Sam and I ever in my dreams, you know, shared a studio apartment, you're not. Yeah, see, she's clear. She's right now turned me down in public. And you wonder why writers are neurotic. This thing happens to us like on panels with friends. Okay. On my tombstone, he was turned down in public. Okay. So, I'd say even to sustain a Fifth Avenue income would require Fifth Avenue choices. And the choices that you make are not those choices. Once you've not made those choices, I stand in bookshops sometimes looking at people and they pick up my book, and they look at it, and then they open it and they flip, and you say, no, stop a moment, read one page. Give that page a chance to catch you, but they're flipping like this. And you're thinking, that's not how you read a book, idiot. Meaning you want pictures or what? Like, and then they put it down and they wander away, and then they turn to you like randomly and they say things like, books are so expensive these days. And you want to say, you're just going to go and buy coffee for 300 rupees. You will piss that coffee out tomorrow morning. A book you buy, not my book, Naresh's book, Sam's book, Parajuly's book, Amrita's book, Mitra's book, Patricia's book, Dhrubo's book, Vivek's book, this will be with you forever. This will change the way you think. This will change your heart in some way. It will change your life and reshape your existence. And what are you choosing? You're choosing coffee.
Jerry, the salesperson for everybody's books.
Yeah. And if I missed you out because you're in the back rows, then I kept waving to the front. And you went and huddled in the back.
By the way, all our books are available today. Yeah.
Are available.
And
They cost as much as about 2 cups of coffee, if not 1.
Sometimes less. Okay. Fundamentally, I think, getting back to finding one's voice, I think a humble request. When you pick up a book, I think also because of festivals and because of writing in the paper, media, things like that, one thinks of a Samhita Arni book, or an Amrita Patil book, or a Mitra Phukon book, or a P. Shivakami book. Instead of which, think of the book instead, without the name. You pick up the book and try and make an association with that book. It may not be your book. It may not be the book you want to read, put it down. But to pick up a book by Sam Arni and say, why isn't she writing about the Mahabharata anymore, is to do the book that you are holding an injustice. I remember Amrita when Soptic came out, right? Had the same problem because everyone wanted Kari. They wanted Kari. They wanted that dark, beautiful, really sexy, nuanced city life, which was gorgeous. But Soptic was gorgeous. Make an association with Soptic. Don't look in Soptic for Kari, because it's not what's on offer here. And hey, if you want Kari, reread Kari. It's with you now. You can experience that magic again. And now when you pick up Soptic, make love to Soptic. Associate now with this book and let the book set its terms for you. Let the book say, this is what I have, and you come in and see whether this fits you. And if you want another book, go write your own. Do that. That's exactly, okay, when my sister was the uber book writer in my family because she read Mills and Boon all the time, and she hated Mills and Boon because the women were without spunk. They were without gut, and so she started writing her own Mills and Boon. She wrote them when, she would take the standard thing where, the Mills and Boon heroine's brother has gambled away some money and the hero says, now you have to sleep with me to get your brother's debts repaid. So she wrote I thought a line that was spectacular. She wrote a line that she said, I would do that, but to do that would make you unsure that I ever loved you. Because you think I was sleeping with you for money and I'd rather sleep with you for love. And I remember thinking, she didn't like the Mills and Boon she was reading, so she wrote the Mills and Boon she wanted. And then her friends also read it. And everyone marked that line. And thought, and said, see how wonderful. And I think experiencing how Canossa Convent Standard 8 responded to Andrea Pinto's first novel made me want that feeling. That feeling that, if there is a book out there that hasn't been written, it's your duty to write it.
Don't you think also in a way that writing is also breaking this act of loneliness? So when you find this voice and you think it's an individual voice and nobody else experiences it or nobody else thinks that way, that when you actually share that, that's also, that's breaking your own loneliness, that kind of fundamental loneliness we experience as writers? Or nobody wants to answer this, it's fine also.
Okay, my thing is, recently I've begun to think that we tend to pathologize ourselves. We tend to turn ourselves into little laboratory specimens of loneliness and angstiness and horror. And what Parajuly said at the beginning, I'm a happy person. I enjoy being me. And then
20% of the time.
Quickly withdrew it saying, then you think I'm stupid and I'm I think this pathology is it is time we put it in its place. We are all lonely. We are all fundamentally alone. We came alone, we will go alone, and most of what we do in the world is striving to hold on to some sense that there is community, there is love, there is friendship. This is not just the writer, this is the engineer. This is the laborer. This is the guy who's serving you coffee. All of us are like that. So us alone, we alone have this voice thing and this loneliness thing? No. If there is anything special about us, it is that in some ways as fiction writers, we try to assuage the loneliness by creating reliable universes where we are central. Our creation process makes the universe. And if we stop making it, the universe stops dead. Which is why when you finish writing a book, there's a terrible sense of loneliness. Then, that moment, because suddenly you have walked away from the world you have created. You have walked away from the only reliable friends you have, because we are not reliable as friends.
I think also what a book does is when you're writing a book is that it's anchoring you very much into your own present experience. For me, I have discovered that sometimes the issues that I face in real life, that while I'm writing a book, there might be certain themes, and that subconsciously my mind is working these themes out in what I'm writing, and there's a weird moment where what I'm writing actually parallels the life that I'm living. Do you ever feel that, Prajwal?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if I'm happy, somehow my characters become happy. The plot of the book meanders into this lovely safe space, and if I'm pissed off at life, that's sort of how the book progresses. I'm sorry, I'm a little disoriented, not because of how much fun I had last night, but because I just got a text from the travel desk that says my car is here. I have a flight at 3, it's 11:55. Am I still good to be here?
Very important question. Can the audience answer this?
Okay, we're good. Okay, all right. Jerry, your turn.
This is like all the Why is it my turn? Suddenly, what's this about turns?
No. We just,
okay, yeah.
okay.
No.
He's very happy to take his turn also.
No, I understand what you're saying about that moment of reality and what you are doing. I've learned to mistrust it, because I think often there is, you know, if you're working out a vendetta against somebody in a book, that's going to show up also. It's going to get thin. Okay, what are we doing? We're doing textures and we're doing surfaces and we're trying to invent a universe with very small things, 26 letters, spaces in between, some punctuation marks and some ellipses. That's what we're doing. We've got that much. And now we're trying to make a universe. As soon as you allow your personal issues full reign, I'm not saying that you can't deploy them, but you have to have them under control. Okay, you have to be able to kind of hold back tightly what you feel and try and this is going to sound not hypocritical but oddly like manipulative of the reader. It's not. You're actually manipulating yourself. You're manipulating what you've got into a form that will sound convincing to the reader, right? So my thing is with say when I'm reading Naresh Fernandez's non-fiction, to me it reads like fiction because it's so well crafted that the story seems like it could only be imagined. But good fiction, when I'm reading Vivek Shanbag's fiction, good fiction should be so good that it reads like non-fiction. Like this must have happened. This had to have happened. And it could only have happened that way. Now these are I think the models. When you have that as the model, then you have the material, the raw material, and the raw material is what, beautiful Yeats line, the rag and bone, the rank rag and bone shop of the heart. That's what you've got as raw material but you will take that, and if you put that rag and bone on display, it will be foul. So now your requirement is to take that and make beauty or reality or alternative reality or discomfiting reality or whatever it is you're aiming at. But that alchemical process is central to this distance between these two things. So yeah.
I have a question actually based on that, because one thing you're talking about using yourself, and I think we're all deploying even finding a voice is deciding which aspect you're going to use today. But and I found this particularly with my last book, that when I killed a certain character, I was sunk in this kind of morbid depression for weeks because I was actually killing part of myself. And I didn't realize myself until that point how much that character had been an aspect of me. And that moment was transformative. Do either of you experience things like that your characters become so real to you but they're actually aspects of yourself?
I just realized I haven't killed a single character in either of my books. So, but no, when you've lived with these people for so long, you miss them. I started my career with a collection of short stories, and I would miss my characters even after I went from one story to another. You get attached to them. You've sort of given birth to them. You've watched them grow. You've nurtured them, and I miss them terribly. I identify most with all the twisted characters in my books, maybe because they're a reflection of who I am. But I miss them, and I miss them even now. Actually, these are books I wrote many years ago, and every so often, when I think of one of them, I go, oh, wow. And, maybe I will be one of those writers who will beat a character to death by, who'll flog a character again and again and again by writing about this character in the near future. But I'm very in love with my characters, and I miss them terribly when they're gone. Jerry?
I'm lazy, I think. All my characters smell to me of the work that I put into them. when Murder and Mahim came out, and a British publisher said they were interested, but they said you have to promise to write 3 or 4 books in the series, because we find that the books work better if there's a series. You have 2 very good characters here, Peter and Shiva. You repeat them in 3 or 4 books, and then we'll take them as a lot, and we'll do them every Christmas for the next 4 years. And I thought, Mother of God, no. I wanted to write that book then. I don't want to write what you want me to write over the next 3 or 4 years so that you can have a book for every Christmas. Meaning, how does that? And then but of course, because they were offering pounds, and pound reality and dollar reality and euro reality is different from rupee reality. I have to say that, then I began to say to myself, Jerry, this is your fear of success kicking in again. You have to be able to confront that fear and be able to sign up this nice juicy pound contract and be happy with the money and do your work. And no, I didn't. But
no, I would have been very tempted, but I think I also feel that pressure of producing book after book and I realize I cannot predict the book that's going to come next. Always. I have to also let it be.
Okay, but Aldous Huxley once had an offer when he was in mid-career. They said someone signed him up for 5 books. There was no stipulation whether he would write fiction or non-fiction. But every year every month he would be paid a salary, a decent salary. But at the end of every year he had to produce a book. And he produced 5 books.
That deal I would take.
Okay, so if there's a publisher in the hall that wants to give Sam Arni a good salary for 5 books over the next 5 years, you know where to come, you know what she's wearing, or make her an offer she can't refuse. Do not cut off the head of her horse and put it on her bed.
Who does that?
The Godfather, for heaven's sake. She's so young. She doesn't even know the Godfather. He sleeps with the fishes. Really.
I saw some very nice young woman waving around a sign that said 10 minutes.
Okay, questions. Questions, please, first.
If we don't, we'll ask.
Otherwise, we'll ask each other questions, as Sam said, without the mic.
I'm very curious what your writing process is like. Sorry.
Me?
Yeah,
My writing? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sam, you first. What's your writing process?
Oh God, it changes from book to book, and I think each book evolves its own new process. I know for the last book, there has to be an input-output ratio, and there's a lot more input that has to go in than output that comes out. It also might reflect my own tendency towards constipation. Who knows? I also have. It doesn't work all the time, but particularly when I'm writing, I suffer from this. So that is part of the process. But I think somebody said too much detail. I agree. And the other aspect of the process is I've learned to let myself do this a lot more. Before I used to go back and rewrite and restructure. My 3rd book went through 9 drafts. Now I'm working on my 5th book and I'm just letting it flow. And I'm finding that a lot easier. I think also as you grow older or with more books, you also realize what's working and what's not working. And if it's not working, you stop for the day. That's at least my process. What about you, Jerry?
So I get up in the morning and I write. I try to write about 3,000 words before I brush my teeth.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like of the writing. Then I start the translation, and I try to do 20 pages of translation before I have lunch. Then I have lunch and I have a nap, and I get up and I do the editing of the proofs of the books that are lined up because my publisher can't.
He's lying.
But I had you there for a moment.
I was just like, oh my God, I'm the worst human being after listening to Jerry Pinto and his productivity. And I was thinking, because I know Jerry does all this working out and intermittent fasting. I was like, where does that all come in?
No. Okay. Okay, process. I have a diary. And that diary has about 40 things written on every page. And those are the 40 things that I have to do for the day before I knock off. That's the thing. That's what keeps me going. Because I'm often stricken by questions like, what does this matter? And is this really worth doing anyway? And who cares? And am I the only person who gives a shit? it's kind of like, I don't know, it's sometimes I think because I have a slightly like, a kind of like desire to correct everything, change the world, make everything better. You know, that feeling that, you know, you do. So you have to earn your space, is what I think. You have to earn your place in the world. So how do I earn my place in the world? I have to earn my place in the world by writing, because I said I wanted to be a writer. And I got a chance to be a writer. And I took that money from Wyndham Campbell. And I am duly, really responsible for it in a certain way. I will not make them feel, I should not make them feel that they gave it to someone who's not writing, because he was given that chance to write. I do translation because I feel it's a moral imperative. I think we live in a nation of islands which is separated at low tide by conversations that are based on agenda. We speak other languages with an agenda. Yeah? So, but to speak from the heart is translation, is poetry, etc., etc. So I want us to be speaking to each other's hearts in Konkani, from Konkani to Hindi, from English to Hindi, etc. And when I started translation, I was very clear. I don't know if I can do this, but the worst that I can do is fail. So I translated 7 books before I put a translation out into the market, because those 7 books were my training wheels. I translated them to see if I could translate, and each time the answer came back, no, you can't. You're doing a very bad job. And then I discovered the secret of translation. You cannot do it with an agenda like training yourself. You cannot do it with an agenda like, am I good at this? You can only do it out of love. Because you so love the book that you've read that you want other people to read it. You become an evangelical ambassador for the book. I have spent most of this festival giving people copies of the translations that I've done, just because I know how much they will get out of those books if they read them. I don't give my own books away because I'm not sure about that. I leave that to other people to do. But the translations, I really, really passionately feel, hey, this is $250 and your life is going to change. How can you not want to read this? Yeah. So those 2 things that I do, and now there's corrections, SCM. I teach at SCM, so at a postgraduate course, and that postgraduate course is very important to me because everything I got, like meeting Naresh Fernandez, or being able to have coffee with Vivek Shanbag, or sitting on this stage, I got out of the magic of journalism, where I started my career in words. I want other young people, and especially young women, to know that this magic is available just out of some riyaz, just out of working hard. But if I make them work hard, it means I have to give them assignments every week, and I get 40 assignments to correct every week, and I have to pay attention to each one of them, because each one of them is like a little gift to me that I'm going to send out into the world. So when I meet a student who comes in and says, I'm working with this newspaper and I'm doing this, and I feel, okay, Unnao has happened, this has happened, that has happened, but we have balances. These are the ways I keep myself going. So all that I do, and the productivity that everybody talks about, is really my attempt to pay back the huge gifts that the universe chucked at me. I have to pay that back. That's why I do it.
So it comes from the end of the book, and it's set in the Tamil Sangam era. It's historical fiction. It's based on the imagined life of the author of the Shilapatikaram, which is a very famous Tamil epic. But the writer of it was a man called Lango Arigal. We imagined him to be a prince who became an ascetic. And this comes from the end. We are all sinners. There is one piece of advice I can give you. We believe we live in a cruel, wretched world, and that moves us to cruel, wretched acts. The world is beautiful. The truth is that the darkness lies within us. You cannot force out darkness, you cannot cut it out or carve it out. How can you cut your own shadow from underneath your feet? It is impossible. Each one of us must learn to accept the darkness within us, those things we consider too horrible to reveal. And yet, once we learn this, we discover that the same darkness abides in every other soul, hidden away and in secret. And this moves us to an even greater realization. We find our own selves reflected in everyone we meet. We find our own soul in them. And that's the bit. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sam Arni's